Reason, the great idol of modernity, the shining torch carried through the Enlightenment, the proud banner of science, the weapon that shattered superstition and cast down gods. We are told that reason is the light that banishes darkness, the cure for ignorance, the key to progress. But what if reason itself carries its own shadow? What if, when worshipped too blindly, reason mutates into something strange, something occult, something closer to magic than logic? Human beings never escape enchantment. They only replace one spell with another. The medieval world was ruled by priests, symbols, miracles, and mysteries. The modern world claims to have destroyed all that, replacing it with rationality, calculation, and science. But look deeper. The rituals remain. The priests wear different robes. The miracles are dressed in equations. The sacred texts are called data. And reason itself has become a religion, complete with dogmas, heresies, and a promise of salvation. Here lies the occult side of reason, when logic stops being a tool and becomes an idol, when rationality ceases to question and begins to demand obedience, when science turns from inquiry into faith. This transformation is not new. It has always lurked beneath human thought. The Greeks already warned of it. Rationalists who sought to explain everything often became mystics. Think of Pythagoras, whose numbers became divine symbols. Think of alchemists, who clothed mystical dreams in the language of experiment. Think of modern technocrats, who promise immortality through machines. The structure is the same. The rational bleeds into the magical. Why? Because the human mind is never satisfied with mere calculation. We hunger for meaning. And when reason cannot provide it, we twist reason into a spell. We demand certainty, so we turn hypotheses into absolute truths. We demand order, so we force chaos into neat systems. We demand salvation, so we recast progress as destiny. The cult of reason promises to protect us from the irrational, but in doing so, it becomes irrational itself. Look at the way people speak of science today. The average citizen does not understand the experiments, the mathematics, the complexity. They simply repeat the words of scientists as if they were scripture. Studies show, experts say, it is not knowledge, it is faith. Science becomes an oracle, invoked without comprehension. This is not reason. This is magic, dressed in white coats instead of robes. The occult side of reason is that it becomes indistinguishable from the superstition it claims to destroy. And the same occurs in politics. Rationality is invoked to justify power. Numbers, statistics, charts, they are wielded as if they were spells to silence opposition. A politician does not need truth. He needs the aura of rationality. He quotes data like a priest quoting scripture, and the masses bow. Rationality becomes ritual. Numbers become incantations. Debate becomes exorcism of heretics. You see it daily, but you do not recognize it, because the robes are digital, not religious. Even technology follows this path. The internet, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, all presented as triumphs of reason. But listen carefully to how they are described. They promise transcendence, immortality, omniscience. They whisper of a world beyond suffering, a paradise built not by gods but by machines. This is theology rebranded. These are miracles dressed in algorithms. The occult side of reason is that it smuggles back the promises of religion under the mask of logic. And here is the irony. Rationality itself cannot explain why you should worship rationality. Logic can prove facts, but it cannot give you reasons to live. Science can dissect the body, but it cannot tell you why you suffer. Data can predict your behavior, but it cannot justify your existence. In this vacuum, people smuggle meaning back in, calling it progress, innovation, enlightenment. But these are not facts. They are myths. They are the new magic. The occult side of reason thrives because people fear the void. They cannot face a world without meaning, without certainty, without salvation. And so, they demand that reason itself deliver what it cannot: morality, purpose, destiny. When it fails, they twist it until it does. And suddenly, reason becomes a spell, cast not to illuminate, but to comfort. But what happens when reason becomes magic? The same thing that happens with every spell: it enslaves. People stop questioning. They stop thinking critically. They bow before science or progress or rationality, the same way their ancestors bowed before idols. They obey not because they understand, but because they fear heresy. They do not dare question the priest in the lab coat, the prophet with the algorithm, the sorcerer of statistics. Reason has become a cult because it hides its true function: obedience. And you are told you are free because you live in the age of reason. But are you? Or are you simply under a new spell, chanting new mantras, kneeling before new idols? You call it logic, but does it free you or bind you tighter? Comment below. Do you think rationality has freed humanity or simply given us a more sophisticated illusion? Subscribe if you want to keep unmasking the hidden magic in what the world calls truth. Share this with someone who worships data as if it were divine, and watch them rage when you call it a spell. Because reason, when worshipped, is no longer reason. It is enchantment. And enchantment, however modern, is still a chain. Reason is supposed to liberate. That is what the Enlightenment promised, that by replacing superstition with knowledge, obedience with understanding, miracles with science, humanity would finally be free. But if you strip away the slogans, what has really happened? The new sorcery is subtler, the new priests wear cleaner robes, and the rituals are harder to detect. The occult side of reason is not a metaphor. It is the structure of our world. Look at the institutions that claim to protect you. Governments parade reason as their divine right. Policies are written in the language of rationality, justified by data, stamped with the seal of objectivity. But reason here is no longer a tool of inquiry. It is a cloak of authority. Charts, statistics, algorithms. These are not explanations. They are spells designed to silence you. When you doubt, you are told you are anti-science, irrational, dangerous. The accusation of irrationality has become the new accusation of heresy. In the Middle Ages, you would be burned for denying the church. Today, you are exiled digitally, demonized socially, for denying the cult of reason. Corporations do the same. The advertising industry, for example, does not simply sell products. It sells myths dressed in rational justification. Studies show this makes you happier. Science proves this keeps you young. These are not truths. They are enchantments. The authority of reason has been hijacked, transformed into a charm to manipulate your desires. The consumer bows before these charms, believing themselves rational, when in truth they are bewitched. Even philosophy, the supposed guardian of reason, is not immune. Philosophers have often turned their rational systems into cosmic blueprints, treating their arguments as if they were sacred diagrams that explain everything. Rationality becomes totalizing, absorbing all of existence into neat categories. But this is no different from mysticism. It is rational mysticism, where reason becomes an oracle instead of an instrument. Systems built on pure logic often end up as metaphysical labyrinths, dazzling but empty, closer to alchemy than to truth. And technology, here the occult side of reason reveals its sharpest teeth. We live in an age where algorithms decide what you see, what you desire, what you believe. You think of them as neutral, as rational, as scientific. But they are black boxes, inscrutable, mysterious. You obey them without knowing how they work. You trust them without understanding. This is not reason. This is sorcery. You consult your glowing screen like an oracle, and it whispers back the truth you are allowed to know. The occult side of reason has been embedded into code. This is why rationality, when worshipped, becomes indistinguishable from magic. because it no longer matters whether you understand. What matters is whether you obey. You repeat mantras like, "Follow the science," the way the faithful once repeated prayers. You trust experts the way villagers once trusted shamans. You cling to progress the way the devout once clung to prophecy. Rationality is the new scripture, technology the new altar, data the new relic. But let us ask, why does humanity always fall into this trap? Why do we turn reason into magic, logic into ritual, data into incantation? Because the hunger for certainty never dies. Rationality, properly understood, offers probabilities, questions, limitations. But human beings crave absolutes. They cannot endure ambiguity. They cannot bear the void. And so they twist rationality until it becomes an idol that gives them certainty, even if that certainty is an illusion. This is why the occult side of reason is more dangerous than religion. At least religion admits it deals with faith, mystery, transcendence. Rationality as idol pretends to be objective, factual, undeniable. Its enchantment is harder to break because it wears the mask of truth. When a priest says believe, you know you are in the realm of faith. When a scientist turned prophet says trust the data, you think you are in the realm of reason. But if you cannot see the data, cannot test the claim, cannot question the oracle, then you are not reasoning, you are worshiping. This worship creates obedience. Societies do not run on truth, they run on belief. And the new belief system is reason as magic. Leaders use it to justify war. Corporations use it to justify exploitation. Technocrats use it to justify surveillance. Everything is rationalized, every atrocity dressed as logical necessity. Entire populations obey not because they understand, but because they believe they are obeying reason itself. The spell is perfect, submission disguised as rationality. Do not misunderstand me. I am not rejecting reason. Reason, when used as a tool, is powerful, indispensable. But when reason becomes absolute, when it stops questioning itself, it mutates into its opposite. It becomes dogma, and dogma, in any form, is occult. The true occult side of reason is not hidden knowledge, it is hidden obedience. The irony is that true rationality is humble. It admits limits, accepts uncertainty, questions itself. But idolized rationality, occult rationality, does the opposite. It declares certainty, enforces consensus, silences doubt. And in that silencing, it becomes indistinguishable from magic. The rationalist who cannot tolerate questioning is no different from the fanatic who cannot tolerate blasphemy. Both are spellbound. Both defend their idols with violence. So the question becomes, can you use reason without worshiping it? Can you embrace rationality without turning it into sorcery? Can you hold the torch of logic without blinding yourself with its light? Most cannot. They either collapse into superstition or flee into fanatic rationalism. Both are chains. Both are spells. The rare few walk a sharper path. Using reason while never forgetting it is a tool, not a god. But will you walk it? Or will you, like the herd, bow to the occult side of reason, convinced you are free while your mind chants mantras it does not understand? Comment below. Do you think rationality has become the new religion, or do you still see it as a tool? Subscribe if you want to keep exploring the hidden enchantments behind logic. Share this with someone who worships data without ever questioning it, and let them feel the unease of realizing their priest is an algorithm. Because the occult side of reason is not coming, it is already here. And the first step to freedom is seeing the spell for what it is. The spell is complete when you no longer notice it, when you repeat its mantras unconsciously, when you defend it without understanding, when you sneer at those who doubt, not with arguments, but with contempt. This is how the occult side of reason sustains itself, through the obedience of the herd who mistake worship for freedom. They believe they are enlightened, but they are merely enchanted. So how do you break the spell? How do you use reason without falling under its occult shadow? The first step is the hardest. Doubt reason itself, not in the sense of abandoning it, but in the sense of refusing to treat it as absolute. True reason questions even its own foundations. It asks, what can I really know? What are the limits of logic? Where does evidence end and belief begin? The occult side of reason begins where doubt ends. So doubt must never die. The second step, separate reason from authority. Do not confuse science with the words of scientists. Do not confuse logic with the pronouncements of leaders. Do not confuse data with the interpretations sold to you. Authority always cloaks itself in the aura of reason, but that aura is a costume. To see through it, you must ask, do I understand, or am I merely repeating? The herd repeats. The free mind understands. The third step, resist the seduction of certainty. This may be the most painful. Human beings crave absolute answers, but the world is not absolute. Rationality, properly used, shows you probabilities, not guarantees. But the occult side of reason offers guarantees to seduce you. This is the truth. This is the model. This is the prediction. This is the cure. And so you kneel, desperate for certainty. To resist is to accept ambiguity, chaos, uncertainty, not as failure, but as reality. The price of freedom is to live without guarantees. And finally, refuse to worship progress. Progress is the new salvation, the secular heaven promised by the cult of reason. But progress is not destiny, it is myth. Technology will not save you. Science will not redeem you. Logic will not free you from the tragic structure of existence. They may offer tools, comforts, distractions. But salvation? No. To expect salvation from reason is to treat it as a god. And that is when it becomes occult. Understand, reason is not the enemy is idolatry. Just as religion collapses when faith hardens into fanaticism, rationality collapses when it hardens into dogma. The occult side of reason is not hidden knowledge, it is hidden obedience, hidden worship. It is the moment reason becomes unquestionable, untouchable, sacred, and the only cure is heresy. Yes, heresy. To think freely in an age of rational dogma is to be a heretic. You will be called irrational. You will be mocked as unscientific. You will be branded a denier, a fool, a danger. But that is the price of refusing to kneel. And heresy, in this sense, is not a rejection of reason. It is the purest form of reason, because it dares to question even the idols that wear reason's mask. The occult side of reason is not destroyed by knowledge. It is destroyed by courage. The courage to say, I do not know. The courage to live without guarantees. The courage to think outside the consensus. The courage to refuse the seductions of certainty, salvation, and progress. This courage is rare because it isolates you. The herd cannot stand beside you. They need their mantras. They need their idols. They need their spells. And so you will stand alone. But in that solitude, you will finally see reason for what it is. A tool, not a god. And when you use it as a tool, sharpened by doubt, stripped of dogma, freed from worship, it becomes powerful again. Not because it explains everything, but because it illuminates enough. Not because it saves you, but because it clears illusions. Not because it grants you certainty, but because it teaches you to live without it. That is true rationality. Not a spell, not a scripture, but a lamp carried by a mortal hand in an infinite night. But will you carry it? Or will you, like the herd, bow before the occult side of reason, chanting its mantras until you die? Ask yourself honestly, are you free, or are you enchanted? Do you think, or do you repeat? Do you use reason, or does it use you? Comment below if you believe reason can survive without becoming an idol. Subscribe if you want to keep piercing the veils of the illusions that enslave humanity. Share this with someone who believes they are rational, and watch how defensive they become when you suggest their reason is nothing but magic in disguise. Because the true danger of reason is not that it fails, but that it succeeds too well. It gives the herd new idols, new rituals, new scriptures, and they kneel once again. The occult side of reason is the eternal return of worship, hiding beneath logic, dressed as enlightenment. And the only way out is heresy, the refusal to worship even reason itself. That is where freedom begins. That is where thought begins. That is where the spell breaks.